Frantsouzoff Sergey Alekseyevich. He is from Saint Petersburg. He had great success in school, and he entered the Eastern faculty of Saint Petersburg University, which he finished in 1985. He written his degree on the history of early medieval period, and he worked for Russian Academy of Science, and he had a doctorate degree. He's a docent, and he had many articles. He's also a professor of Eastern faculty of St. Petersburg University. He also studies Africa and East, and he is a teacher of the High Economical School in St. Petersburg. So, Mr. Frantsouzoff, St. Petersburg, the theory of infernality by Ivan Efremov in the context of Russian Cosmism. Dear colleagues, among the thinkers who have made a significant contribution to the development of philosophy and worldview, among these who made a professional language for expressing their ideas, it is not accessible to the understanding of laymen who have not passed special training. For example, Sartre and Camus, Aristotle, Kant and Hegel, and Efremov was a cosmic thinker, and he belonged to the direction at the origins of which Plato stood. He had some literary works about science fiction and adventure genre. He has great understanding of the vector development of nature and society directly from the scientific discipline, paleontology. And with this discipline in which he achieved great success, he created a new section within his framework that studies the patterns of pural processes and formation of location of fossils of organisms. He was an outstanding scientist. The former old philosophical knowledge of the world, they were ignoring the process of development of living nature, which, according to even such titans of thought as Hegel and Schelling, only unfolded in space. So there is the other thing that we need to consider. Vladimir Ivanovich Vernadsky is no accident that he was the founder of the noosphere theory. And Vernadsky and Efremov are considered to be the brightest representatives of Russian Cosmism. So what is the essence of this theory of infernality? The whole process of evolution is considered by him as a satanic path of ruthless cruelty, by living beings seeking improvement blinded through natural selection. I'd like to quote the hour of Baal. It's only natural, and it's the brightest understanding of infernality. And there are many lives who will lose. The natural selection was the main in our evolution, but as well we need to develop our feelings. Without any doubt, he thought about how the remains of organisms are processed, and it influenced this theory. There should be special conditions for living, and biologists thought about them, and they create the echo inferno. The more we went into this theory, the harder consequences we had. the process of civilization, which is the highest point of our human being, with a neural system, the creation of human being is the process which we can see even right now. And altruism can help with it. The idea of human being is to understand, to be together with other beings, and to be altruistic, and not only be an animal. The infernality is presented in full in science fiction novel by Efremov, The Hour of Fool. It is anti-utopia, which is not extremely right. It was created in 1964 to 1996. In Feyerud's conversation with Chedidah in Chapter 4, The Echo of Inferno, in a lecture given by Voronezh at the Institute of the Planet Torments in Chapter 12, The Crystal Window. I hope that you have read this. So they speak of the people of Earth in social harmony, and these people ran away from the planet, and unfortunately, they lived up to all the bad things that humanity was into before, all the sufferings. It was not by luck. And these events are happening in 2,000 years. So it is 4,000 years. So there is also a book called Razor Blade in the lecture Ivan Kirin, and he had a discussion of Indian wise people, and he spoke of Ashwin Bridge. The most serious impetus to its development was a letter from the outstanding Russian geneticist Vladimir Efremov. It is very symbolic that one of the first surviving letters of Efremov and there also was an application on the evolution. Some views were already in this work, but there was nothing really new. The main hero of the Razor Blade was the believer of science and the believer of beauty. All of this is subconsciously, and it leads to the perfect universal mechanism for survival. It is the essence of beauty, which divides human from animal. The proportion, the harmony are as well, they are very important. We speak of the different signs, and beauty is mathematical. Beauty is synergy. Some people addressed the author of the book, and they asked some questions. Many people believe that the number is perfect. The beauty is a great response to the genetical problem. It is a very bright form. The whole process of evolution of human being, we know that in our galaxy, the materia has risen above the goodness, and we all suffered. We are in war, and millions of victims there are of what's going on. And Vladimir Petrovich had great response to it. So he wrote the two books, Genetic of Being Genius and Genetic of Ethics and Aesthetics. There is an instinctive base. It looks like the combination of colors, and it speaks of the victim which either cannot be eaten, either else, and it coincides with the combinations of colors. The perfection of our body understood in India, with billions and billions of victims on the path of the historical development of the animal world, of the planet. There can be an analogy to when some animals eat others, and it's like something devilistic. Efremov gave this quote to Efremson. There should be coincidence, because Efremson and Efremov means the same in Russian. Because he is unique.
He had a book, The Genetics of Genius. And it means that, in part, this is something that is biological. Joan of Arc is someone who is considered to have the Morris syndrome. And he gives the proof telling that she had this symptom. He was just telling about the indications of the fact that she had it. Maybe Yarda Chardin also influenced the formation of the theory of infernality. This is the book that was published in the USSR in 1965, 10 years after it was published in original language. This is what Efremov had. Efremov had this book. He was about to read it. And the French scientists knew about it. Art, poetry, spoke about all this before. And all of this was also mentioned and was also seen by Leo Tolstoy. And here, there were multitudes of examples. And in part, the work of Chardin says that there is a certain culmination, the certain omega point. The Chardin said that evil is lack of kindness. And the infernality theory is based on dualism. And of course, when you want to preserve something that is not perfect, can be done only by the privileged classes. They first of all created segregation of their people under any pretext, national, religious, to turn their life into a vicious circle of inferno. For this reason, infernality was inevitably the work of their hands. This is how Mani's naive religious teaching about the existence of directed evil in the world, Manichaeism, was suddenly realized. And Vernorian in his lecture directly speaks about the symbol of directed evil. So we cannot play with nature, which has been playing at random for billions of years, because this is its method noticed 7,000 years ago in ancient India and called Rasha Lila. Only the combination of all aspects of human knowledge helped us to rise above this game, that is, above the gods of India. We might not have made it, for in the gathering inferno of our planet, Arimsam's arrow could have caused irreparable damage. I use a term that you may not understand, the thickening of the inferno. And that refers to a person who clumsily exercises an imaginary power over nature. He destroys the inner harmony obtained at the cost of quadrillions of sacrifices on the altar of life. When we understand that cornflowers and wheat form a unity, then we will take the heritage of nature in kind, understanding hands, one scientist said. It is no accident that the central image of the novel, Hour of the Bull, that is taken by Efremov from the philosophical novel A Voyage to Arcturus. And the question that arises, was the author not agnostic? It can be considered as agnostic path. A follower of Gnosticism who is aware of himself as such. This is the website, but the most famous work is A Voyage to Arcturus. Torments is a word that was thought up by the author. It does not exist in any language. He really liked to play with the words. At least one dissertation is dedicated to this work. It was a dissertation by a French scientist, Salé. And here are the publications about him as an occultist, and they noticed. What is the role of Gnosticism? It is hard to answer, because his views included different points, different aspects. In fact, Torrens can be identical to Crag, who drew the heroes from Earth to this planet, and whom the local inhabitants consider the devil, and the true name of Surtur Crag, pain. So is there a way out of Inferno? Of course, there is no final and irrevocable answer, because humanity, having ceased to be itself, cannot be outside of nature. However, realizing the infernality of all biological and social evolution, the most advanced representatives of humanity should devote themselves to minimizing the degree of suffering both in society and in nature. Thus, the knowledge of the world is not an end in itself, and since it is unlimited, it should be directed in such a way that good increases and evil decreases. Here is what was said. Every step is difficult, but the steps should be aimed at decreasing the suffering of the humanity. This is the way out of Inferno. This is the only way out. This is essentially the Bodhisattva path. Ivan Efremov said about this directly. And after all of these sufferings, was it what Bodhisattvas did? Maybe this is something that will make everyone know everything, make them equal, and make all the boundless nature and beauty accessible to a man. For Ivan Efremov, who already in the 60s saw that the Western civilization had reached a dead end, it was obvious that the society of the future should have a different civilizational basis, which can, with a certain degree of convention, be called Indo-Buddhist. This is quite interesting indeed. The Kalachakra calendar used in historical research and a number of moral norms drawn from Buddhism. However, I of course wrote about this already. Great interest to the Eastern teachings was shown by famous scientist Vernadsky, and he thought that all ideas regarding how something living came from something that is not living is not indeed possible. And the science cannot actually say something counter in this. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for your speech.